Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings, Stone Guardians, Crystal Keepers, Gin Lovers and Rockhounds. Welcome to There's a Rock for That.
Hello, and welcome to There's a Rock for That. This is the show where we talk all about crystals, gems, and rocks, and how we can work with them, and other things too related to them, like our topic today, which is going to be talking about crystal oracle decks. And our featured crystal for the month of April is Pektites. And we will be talking all about wonderful Tektites as well as taking your calls. This is a live call-in show. You can call in to talk rocks or to get a free crystal mini reading. And I am your host, Mary Brown. And I hope that all of you are enjoying your weekend and this beautiful Saturday that we're having here where I am in Amarillo, Texas. If you want to call into the show, we'll be starting to get into calls in a little bit here. But the number to call in is 714-816-4628. That number again is 714-816-4628. If you want to be on the air to ask a question or to talk about rocks, be sure to press the number 1 on your dial pad, because that kind of raises your hand so that I can see you in the queue here on the switchboard. I can see we have a bunch of callers already lined up. It's so exciting. I can't wait to start taking calls. Another thing I wanted to say is that you can also ask questions or comment or talk with other people listening to the show on our Facebook chat post. And you can find that quite easily by going to psychictalk.net/chat. And that will take you right there, or you can find it easily too by going to our Psychic Talk Radio Facebook group. Be sure to join our Psychic Talk Radio Facebook group if you haven't yet. We have a page in the group. Like the page, join the group, join the fun. And today, again, this is the rock show, so we're talking about rocks, one of my favorite topics ever. And this show is sponsored by the Tarot Guild, the international organization for tarot lovers, students, and professional readers since 2004. Check out thetarotguild.com, and that is thetarotguild.com. Got to have the or the "the" in it. You know, it's weird, right? Some people say the, some people say the. I guess I do kind of both. Depends on the day. Also, if you join our Psychic Talk Radio Facebook group, I post a card of the day in there every day. Card and kind of, I don't. Sometimes or very rarely do I do a lot of exposition on the cards that I post. I kind of let them speak for themselves because I want people to get their own message from them. But the cards are beautiful. And today's card on there really fits with the topic today. And yes, that was on purpose. That wasn't a random draw. It's a card from the Crystal Reading Cards deck, Healing Oracle, as described by Rochelle Sharman, with really beautiful illustrations done by Shayoti Carter. And the card that I purposely chose for today is Libyan Gold Pektites. And the message is manifestations. And Libyan Gold, it's kind of rare. You're not going to find it at every crystal or rock vendor. Also referred to as Libyan desert glass, and it's this opaque yellow and gold color. And according to Rochelle Sharman, who is one of my favorite crystal oracle deck authors, and we'll talk about that in a little bit when we start just talking about the idea of crystal oracle decks. She feels it's related to the crown chakra. She sees it as a powerful crystal to use for manifestation, because she thinks it supports and assists you in expanding into higher planes of existence, creating a deeper connection to your higher self, and from there you channel and manifest your higher purpose and intentions into the physical state and into your everyday life. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful stone. Again, you know, you're not going to find it everywhere, but I just wanted you to see a beautiful illustration and picture of the stone. So maybe if you do happen to be somewhere, maybe it's, say, the Tucson Gym show that's coming up, where they're very likely to have some samples of it there, you should be able to easily recognize it. So, okay, before we start taking calls, I did want to go ahead and talk about Tektites. You know, what are they, and why would you want one, right? And, you know, they're considered to be of extraterrestrial origin, because what happens is when a meteorite hits the Earth, right? You know, the impact ends up creating what they call a strewn field, and the heat of that impact turns often the rocks that it hits into what looks like glass. You know, so in a way, there's a similarity with that in, say, something like obsidian that comes from, like, you know, a volcanic eruption, and you see that like black glass created from the heat of it. Tektites are definitely connected to the idea of having extraterrestrial origins. You know, Tektites. So it's the material that has been melted by the force and the heat from the impact. And so there's kind of a mixture. It's kind of a mixture in some cases of terrestrial and extraterrestrial materials. Now, extraterrestrial materials, when we think of meteorites, you know, something to really look into, and I can't go into a full explanation here because it's very scientific, and I'm definitely not the best qualified to talk about it. I don't have a science degree. But iridium, right, is something that is found in, you know, around the Earth, found in our oceans, but particularly associated with, you know, an impact from the meteorite. You know, the most famous of which would be the Chicxulub meteorite impact, which is the one credited with the demise of the dinosaurs and then the rise of the mammals. And if you can imagine, you know, what that might have been like, you know, at this point, you know, scientists see this as like, here's a meteor with a diameter of something between like maybe 6 to 9 miles in diameter, right? Traveling around some 36,000 miles per hour. And the idea of the energy released from that impact, they compared it to 10 billion simultaneous Hiroshima A bombs exploding. Okay, so wiping out the dinosaurs, wiping out 75% of plant life, you know, all of the things that they associate with that particular impact, that's incredible to contemplate the sheer, you know, just the release of the energy of that. And most tektites that we're talking about are not, you know, they're not coming from the Chicxulub impact site. Although, you know, it's, that's a good question. Have any been found from there? And it's probably like absolutely yes. But almost all of them, are under like a millimeter in diameter by now, and scattered, widely all over the earth. So it's kind of, it would be hard to say, right? If somebody comes to you and says, like, look, I have this Tektite I got from the Chicxulub meteor impact, it's probably going to be really hard to source that, and to show that it really is. If they feel it is, then that's good for them, but you might not necessarily want to buy it based on that claim, because really no significant tektites have been found from that particular impact. Because believe me, everybody wants one, right? That's like, you can't have a more an older part of history really in your collection than that is. And that also gets us to this idea of, like, what's the age of these things? What's the age of tektites? Well, probably, I think the most popular tektite that most people have heard of is Moldavite. Now, Moldavite, it really just comes from one place. This is off of the Moldau River. I want to say near the, it's in the Czech Republic. I don't know, boundaries change so much, but, in that region, and that's where it's going to come from. And that is a tektite that is thought to be around 15 million years. Okay, so that's one big attraction to tektites, is that you really are getting some of, like, the oldest materials that you can possibly get. Now, why would you want that other than, it's cool to have? On this show we talk a lot about working with stones because, for their metaphysical properties, and for some people it's like a spiritual path. For me, it's definitely part of my spiritual path. That idea of having a stone that is so ancient, you can't get more ancient than 15 million years ago. I mean, I suppose you can, but it's still going to be like a stone, some type, and probably a tektite. Is that if you want to feel a connection to the past, if you want to feel a connection to the history of the earth, and if you want to feel connection to the universe, and to outer space, and to extraterrestrials for some people, I think a tektite is really kind of your go-to stone for a lot of those things. And throughout our history, because it was such an event. Any time that you witness a shooting star, right? It kind of stands out to you. And often those shooting stars are meteorites passing through our atmosphere, and that's why you see them blaze across. They look like fireballs. But some of them land, and some of those meteorites are found. There's whole huge organizations of people that hunt for meteorites and collect them and stuff. I'm trying to think. I think there's a great online magazine. I want to say it's called meteoritetimes.com. Meteorite-times, I believe, is the link.com. And there you hear all the latest information from people that are really, like, that's their livelihood, is studying and looking for and collecting and selling meteorites. It's so fascinating to us, right, to have something that comes from beyond, our Earth something that is not of this world that we're walking around in every day. And, ever since ancient times, humans have felt that way. The ancient Greeks, there's a lot of, records that show people witnessing, meteorites falling, people, just being amazed by them and collecting, the little Tektites and using them as like talismans to wear. It was thought to be incredibly good luck if you found one. Because it's so rare, it's like you find something from the stars, and ancient people especially, connected the stars with the gods, and so was thought like as a gift from the gods. And, look, I talk about this in terms of ancient people. I have definitely met people today who have similar beliefs about them, and why not? I mean, if it really resonates with you in that way, who's to say that, there's anything to really argue about there, And it's kind of funny. I don't even know why I'm saying that, but I just feel like there's a lot of arguments about beliefs and belief systems lately, and perhaps, that's a story as old as time, right? We've sort of always done that. But there's something about rocks coming to Earth, things that we see that aren't on the Earth with us, like the sun, like the moon, that has always sort of resonated with me, because really it's like, what else is outside the norm than something that's not from the planet or on the planet we're living on? So Tektites, to me, I think are really, they're in their own special category. And they're rare, and they're fascinating, and they really are, they come from all over the place. And so there's a lot of wide variety. I posted that, wonderful picture of the Libyan golden Tektite, or Libyan desert glass, as some people call it. And one thing that I like people to think about when they're talking about, when we talk about collecting stones, is, the location. Where do they come from? And do you feel a resonance with that? Do you, sometimes it's through ancestry, sometimes it's just, we don't know what it is. I mean, some people would argue it's a past life, but there's reasons that we feel connections to certain areas. And the great thing about Tektites is that you can find them, from a lot of different places in the earth. I have a small piece of Moldavite. I have Slavic ancestry, so I do feel connection through that, and I'm fascinated by, the universe, scientifically, metaphysically, in a lot of different ways. So I feel connection through that, and but I also have a few samples of the Tektites that came from from China, from the Nantan meteor impact there, the strewn fields in the Nantan region in China. And so, that's just me. You might resonate with the Libyan desert glass, for other reasons. So, pay attention to those things. Don't ignore them, because they're significant. You have those feelings for a reason. And, here's the thing that I have found in talking to people about Tektites. Some people were really attracted to them, and others are really like the opposite, like of attracted, in a sense, or there's fear around them. There's fear that, can develop around them because of the idea that they are of extraterrestrial origin. And what I would say is, one thing we always need to be cognizant of when it comes to working with any sort of crystals is, making sure, that that they're not like on the toxicity list somewhere. You can find that by Googling it. Like, the latest crystals that are thought to have toxic properties. There's some that, you especially if they're not polished stones, you don't want to handle too much with your bare hands. There's, a lot that you definitely don't want to be making elixirs with. And with Tektites, you have that extraterrestrial thing. So what I would say is, like, don't lick it, right? Like, don't put it in your drinking water. Don't do things that are going to cause you to be exposed maybe to, dangerous, chemicals, that aren't going to be good for you. Like, we associate iridium, like I was saying, which is a rare earth. I guess you could call it a metal. It's very similar to platinum in its non-corrosive properties. And it's thought to have low toxicity, but really, it's not like people are doing a lot of testing with these things. So, always use, your head. Always be a little bit cautious about what you're handling. Wash your hands afterwards, all that good stuff. What are some of the other things that Tektites have been associated with? According to Judy Hall, she feels that because of their extraterrestrial origin, they're believed to enhance communication with other worlds and to encourage spiritual growth through absorption and retention of higher knowledge. Forming a link between the creative energy and matter can help you to release undesirable experiences, remember lessons learned, and concentrate on the things that are really going to be helpful to your spiritual growth. And she has found that Tektites in particular can take you deep into the heart of the matter, helping you to have insights into the true cause and what's necessary for you to do to help balance everything. Placed on the chakras, Tektites can balance the energy flow and may reverse a chakra that is spinning the wrong way. Be helpful for telepathy and clairvoyance if it's placed on your third eye, and help you communicate with other dimensions, and strengthens the biomagnetic shield around the body. But really, traditionally, they've been worn as talismans for fertility, for protection, for all kinds of things. All of these things sort of vary by the type, the color, and the place of origin for the different Tektites that you might use. When you look at Moldavite in particular, and that again is probably, I think, the most popular of the Tektites amongst the people that are buying them to use for metaphysical reasons. You look at kind of like the color of them, that dark green color that you see in Moldavite. So a lot of times with that, there is a connection between the color and also what the healing properties may be. So a lot of that information is easily found. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of some of the properties that people find, they feel are associated with these different Tektites. And, look, some people just don't want anything to do with them or can't handle the energy. That's one thing I've heard from other people. I haven't had that experience per se, but I have heard from several people sort of anecdotal, instances of feeling like overwhelmed with Moldavite. It's such a unique and fascinating stone, and you're drawn to it, and you maybe carry it around for a day, and it's like, whoa, I can't handle this energy. And if you're really sensitive to the energy of crystals, you might be one of those people. And so, again, regardless, we always want to use our common sense, and if something is having like an adverse impact on us, or we feel like the energy is too much, then, don't carry it around in 24 hours a day. Limit your time, spend a little less time. See if there is a certain level of interaction with Tektite that is comfortable for you. Because any time that we feel that discomfort, that's a signal that, like, okay, let's acknowledge that, and let's try something a little bit different here in the way that we're dealing with it. So anyways, that's our Tektites. I'm going to be talking about our topic of crystal oracle decks pretty much all through the rest of the show here, because I today decided, since that's kind of the main topic, is what I'm going to use for the reading. So for everybody, in the queue, I'm going to be doing your readings, if you're calling for mini readings, using, one of, or maybe a couple of various oracle, crystal oracle decks here. So you can all get a sense of, like, what kind of messages can you get from these cards? How are they useful? And we'll be talking about other uses for them outside of readings as well. Before I start taking calls, because it is almost the bottom of the hour, I thought I'd go ahead and let you know what we have coming up on the Psychic Talk Radio Network this week. And our next show is going to be Monday, April 5th, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. It's a Wisdom of the Soul show with your host, Janice Fuchs. And that will be followed on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, the Compassionate Light Healing and Guidance Hour with host Catherine Hahn. She's going to be talking about the power of gratitude and kindness. And on Friday, the Doctors Are In show with host Dr. Rose Wilkerson and Dr. Dax Carlisle. They'll be talking about where did the universe come from, and answering that question from a sacred geometry view. And then I'll be back next Saturday for the Tarot Today show with my co-host Dax Carlisle, and we'll be doing open lines and free tarot mini readings all show long. So that's what we have coming up on the Psychic Talk Radio Network. You can see all of our shows, listed times, and information easily by going to psychictalk.net/upcoming. Okay, so let's go ahead, get to the calls, and start working with these crystal oracle decks. And our first caller today, who has been waiting the longest, is area code 330. Area code 330, caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Leslie from Manhattan, Kansas.
Leslie from Manhattan, Kansas. That sounds cool. Sounds spiffy. So what did you want to talk about today?
Yes, I'm in the middle of a soon-to-be 4-year-old higher education job search where I want to work with college students, presumably undergraduate college students, and I believe I would like to work in the state of Ohio. Do you see me getting a position in the state of Ohio here in the next few weeks and months that'll be closer to my mother?
Okay, let's take a look at that. Using the, what are we going to use for this one? We were going to use the Crystal Reading Cards deck and see how they might respond to that question of, do we see you getting a job in Ohio that's going to put you closer to your mom and, doing what you're wanting to do there? And what comes up? Well, that is a very strange answer. And these are crystal cards, of course. What's so fascinating? Getting closer to your mother. The Rose Quartz card comes up here, and that's a card of love in the inner child. So even though you're a big grown-up, you still have an inner child, and nothing reminds us of that except for, that paternal and maternal and the parental relationship that we have. So to me, that's a positive sign. Fluorite card talking about learning. You're talking about education, right? Working with undergrads in a way. And the final message here comes from Pray Night, and it's about trust. Trust in this being able to happen for you and to manifest for you. Two other things that come up here: fire agate and pink tourmaline, talking about creativity. So, do you consider like the job that you're wanting to do in Ohio, is that creative in nature? It's almost everything requires some form of creativity when you think about it.
And I believe in the creativity, and I've applied for a lot of positions in the state of Ohio, especially in the last 6 months.
Wow. Okay. So you've been you had to be creative in the things that how you approach this, basically. Kind of like
Right.
look at different things that you can apply for. Oddly enough, the other card that comes up here is the one kind of like making me scratch my head a bit, and it's pink tourmaline. It's talking about forgiveness. So is it anything that you feel like you need to like kind of, forgive, or just kind of, get past when it comes to this big move, the big job search, or the move to, closer to your mother, all of these things? It sounds like it hasn't been an easy process, and maybe that's what we need to be able to just kind of, okay, I'm not going to let that hold me back. They're not going to not hold you back, but I guess like frustrate you, like don't hold on to the frustration of it. I don't know, but ultimately having the main card say, trust that you're on the right path here and that you're going to be able to make this happen, I think is really a good sign that, yeah, we're going to be able to see it. Now, you're asking about the timing of it, right? Is this going to happen in the next few months or so? And let me just pull another deck here that might give us a closer idea of timing, what kind of timing we're talking about here. I'm getting like October time frame. Okay, so that may be when it actually happens, and you're on the job. So I would say yes, something's going to happen in the next few months, but I don't really see you in the job until October.
October?
Yeah. So, we could say like the fall, maybe September, October, but October seems to be like the main time frame that's indicated here for this happening. So, it's going to be a process.
Yeah.
And that could involve, the move and everything.
Yeah, but it could be sooner. Anything can happen.
Exactly. So, if we're looking at, you being on the job there in October, definitely a lot's going to have to happen before that. I mean, you're going to have to, all the logistics of moving and everything, getting set up, where you're going to live, all of those things, and making all the connections. Have you made connections in Ohio already outside of your mother?
Yeah, I do have a lot of professional connections in most of the major universities in the state of Ohio, and I have my LinkedIn connections in my network.
Perfect. I was just going to say that your network is a valuable asset in all of this. So absolutely, I think you can make this happen. But for whatever reason, I don't see you really working in that job until October. Absolutely, anything can happen. That's the nature of life, right? But
right.
I would kind of have that in your mind that, like, okay, this time in, by October, I'm going to be in the job. I'm going to be doing what I've been trying to make happen, and kind of, look, almost anybody will tell you that it doesn't ever hurt and often can help if we can see what we are trying to manifest as already a done deal, and operate with that mindset of like, this is happening. This is where I'm going. This is what I'm going to be doing, and push our push ourselves energetically in that direction of like, this is already going to happen. So what do I need to do here where I am now in Manhattan, Kansas, to, make the transition smoother?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've always had confidence in myself, and I'm starting to rebuild my own confidence by being more clear and concise in my interviews and answering that first question, talk about my passion in working with students, and then in asking the community if they want me to add anything additional. And I've gotten help from an HR coach.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, so you are working with students. Okay, that's
Right.
why the thing about learning, education, that kind of thing came up. So that's fantastic. I think you're on the right track here, and I think you're going to make it happen. And absolutely, you should have confidence in your ability to do this, and not just do this, but that you're the right person for this.
Yes, it's all about the fit.
Yeah. And, it's going to be, are there any other aspects of this change that you're going to be making that I just keep thinking, like, so many of the cards that came up, they're talking about stones that we use for self-love, that pink tourmaline, that rose quartz, and talking about issues. I mean, do you have that forgiveness message is the thing that didn't fit for me? Is there an aspect that we have to work on when it comes to forgiving ourselves?
Yes.
Okay, because that might be something for you. You don't have to say it on air to my billions of listeners, but I think it might be really good to make sure that you have forgiven yourself, and that you're doing this from a place of understanding. And we had that inner child card. It's like all we have is the now, right?
Right.
And anything from the past, it just can eat away at us. It can chip away at things. It can kind of hold us a little back from like feeling whole. We feel like, this went wrong, or this happened to me, or I made this mistake. It doesn't help us in the now, and it's definitely when you're packing for your big move to Ohio, that's baggage you don't need to pack. You can leave that behind.
I'm going to be doing a lot of downsizing when I get offered and accept the position.
Yeah. Because a lot of times we're carrying stuff we just don't need anymore because it's not serving us. And sometimes that's physical stuff, and sometimes it's emotional, So I just want to leave you with that, and just those are things that you can do that are going to help you get ready for this big transition, and also I think it is just going to help in so much more positive opportunities and really great energy when you make this transition, when you're in your literally a new life in a way.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks so much for calling, Leslie, and I wish you bright blessings on that amazing journey you're about to embark in. And please, call in to the show again and let us know how it's going.
I will. You have a good Easter.
All right. You too. Bye-bye. All right. So that was a wonderful call from Leslie. We wish him lots of luck and bright blessings on that adventure that he is about to embark on. And let's go ahead and take our next call and see who has been waiting the longest. And that is area code 323. Let's see. Is that Los Angeles? Area code 323. Caller, are you there?
Greetings. This is David.
David, where are you calling from?
I'm in Palm Springs, California.
Oh, Palm Springs. Lovely downtown Palm Springs. I've been there. What did you want to talk about today?
Well, I would love a little mini reading, but I would actually have a kind of just a general question. I've been into crystals and had them in and out of my life for most of my life. And I actually had a very eccentric, wise old friend years ago who claimed that we were in Atlantis when it sunk and that we had misused our crystals to make that happen. And so I spent 20 or 30 years kind of scared of them. And I'm not scared of them anymore.
Oh.
But,
right.
but what's happened...
Yeah, that's a wild story. Yeah, I could do it.
Yeah, it is a wild story. And this was like a millionaire businesswoman. This was not a woman with gray hair sitting, on a sidewalk selling stones. I mean, she was like driving a Porsche and wearing, Gucci jewelry and the whole thing. Anyway, so
you wouldn't expect to hear
my
it
whole life
from
is kind of
her.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, someone you wouldn't expect to hear that from, basically.
Exactly. So my whole life has kind of been weaving in and out of crystals, and my life hasn't changed that much in the last year, but I do have more downtime, and I've kind of gone nuts buying crystals online. And so my general question is, so when I get crystals and they're not the right crystals for me, what should I do with them? Because I know people say crystals always only end up where they belong. Well, I'm living proof that's not true, because I've literally got drawers full of crystals that I have no interest in. And it turns out it was just the thrill of buying it. So I'm wondering, what do you do with crystals when you don't want them, and also what the cards have to say to me?
Okay, so what do you do with crystals when you don't want them? People do different things. Some people resell them. If they really want to get into that, they might, open up a little, account on Etsy or eBay and do that. They might go to a local rock shop and see if anybody wants to buy them from them. Usually they don't. They're trying to get rid of their inventory. You can, sell them on Amazon. What I like to do, I give them away as gifts. I love to give crystals away. Now, if you, do you have your own business or anything, or do you work, in any sort of fashion like that? And the only reason I'm asking is I think, when do I give crystals away? I give them away when people come over to visit. I have a big basket full of, crystals that I sit out in the living room, and I tell everybody to just, choose a stone that they feel resonates with them. When I do readings that, like psychic fairs, or, I've been asked to, speak at events and stuff, I'll have, a little basket of crystals that people can, just pick a stone from, too. So those are some ways to give them away. They make great gifts, as well. And, here's the thing that I really love to do, right? And it really depends on what kind of crystals you have. The ones that you don't want, are they all the same kind, or are they like kind of all kinds of different stones?
Oh yeah, it's an assortment, but it's you know I've never owned a piece of amethyst or rose quartz. I mean these are like high end, you know, crystals that yeah, I mean, you know, just an assortment from all over the world, because I was kind of, I wanted to like touch them all and see if they had anything to share with me, and a lot of them haven't.
Right. They're like, we don't really have anything to say to you. You
Right.
know, because that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you should,
you
know, they always say buy crystals, you know, in person and touch them first, but, you know, we're not living in a time right now where that's easy to do.
Well, there's a lot of, let's say, rules that people kind of create around that. Oh, well, look, I mean, we create all kinds of weird rules around everything, and
Right.
and yeah, I've heard that a lot, and I just don't agree with it. I feel like a stone can resonate with you through, you know, looking at a picture of it online, touching it in person, sure, but there's no like it has to be one way or the other, you know.
Right.
And there's no guarantee that the effect that a stone has on one person is going to have the same effect on somebody else, you know. And so if they're high end, if they're the more expensive, if they're the rarer specimens, then definitely, you know, you might think about reselling them or gifting them to somebody really special. Now, the other thing that you might think of is like, okay, you know, I got this crystal, and I don't feel anything from it. I'm not getting any messages from it, if that's one way that you work with crystals. So what should I do with it? Well, do you do any grid work? Have you ever made a crystal grid?
No, I mean, I do in my own home, but I don't go running around
Right.
outside with it.
Right, you know, because that's one thing that you could do is see if some of those stones might be great, you know, in a crystal grid, like say in a certain room in your house or something. So, and you're not into jewelry making, or are you?
No, not really. But I mean, a lot of my crystals, I mean, you know, they're like, I bought like big matrix crystals and
Right.
you know.
Okay, yeah, you're not going to wear that around your neck.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I thought of something else too. And I didn't have the full thought. Oh, what is it? Oh, there are, there's one in particular. There's a Facebook group, and gosh, but what they do basically is they'll do auctions on Facebook with the stones that they don't want anymore. And they'll make like a little video like showing the stone, you know, sources, all that stuff. These are generally like rock hounds for the most part that do this. And you can, you know, find, you know, do that with some of those stones and maybe find somebody that actually that's the stone that they're looking for, and they might want to bid on it, you know. And usually they'll be like, it's not like eBay. eBay might be you know, the easier, less, you know, labor-intensive way to do it, you know. You just post it and describe it and put it up for auction at a minimum. But there are groups. I want to, the name is not coming to me now of what that group on Facebook is. But if you, you know, do a search on Facebook for, you know, groups that, you know, crystal or into crystals and rocks, rockhound groups, that kind of thing, you may be finding, you know, an easy way to connect with people that want what you have that you don't want anymore, you know.
Right. I've actually never in my life been on Facebook, but.
Oh my gosh. Well.
But maybe I'll I'll put them together and put them in a box and mail them to you, maybe.
You could do that too. But yeah, do you have a lot of friends that like crystals as well?
I don't have any spiritual friends at all, and it's not from a lack of trying, but I don't have one spiritual friend.
In Palm Springs? Wow.
But yeah, yeah.
Man. Huh. Well, that's a pickle. Yeah, because, there are a lot of people that aren't, like, into the spiritual thing that do like crystals, so some people. But there's a lot of options, and, maybe you don't want to get on Facebook, probably, if you haven't already. You're probably like, oh, my God, I'm glad I never joined. Right? So you see
and it's not a financial thing for me. It was more of a philosophical question of what do I do and have I screwed up?
No, you haven't screwed up. Screwing up. Oh, I get it. Okay. So there's a lot of options of what you could do. I think giving them away, giving them as gifts, all of those things are options, great ideas. Starting an account on Etsy.com where you can offer them for sale or not sale if you don't want to make any money off of them. But the philosophical question of, did I screw up by buying these crystals not in person, and then I get them, and they don't resonate with me, and here I am with these stones? And no, you didn't screw up, because is it really always about us? When we get a stone, when we get a crystal, right, that we don't really feel anything too much about, are we screwing up in some way? No. Chances are that we're part of the journey. Sometimes we meet people, and there are people that philosophically think that, like, oh, everyone we connect with, there's a great meaning to that. There's a meaning for us. There was a reason this happened to us. And I think, personally, sometimes it really isn't about us, that we're part of the journey of someone else or of something else in the case of crystals. If you really screwed up, then I think you would be probably cognizant of it. So, like, do you think anything bad happened? Anything bad happened when you got any of those crystals that you didn't resonate with? That you could
just my own frustration. Like, I spent a fortune on a piece of phenakite, and I couldn't feel it. So then I spent a ton of money on a different phenakite from a different country, and I spent a lot of effing money on phenakite, and it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't like me. I don't like it. I've actually put it out in the garden that it's literally like I have $1,000 worth of crystals just sitting out there in the garden. So it's not superficial with me. It's not about money.
Yeah.
It's just about what are my relationships with crystals.
Right.
And am I doing it wrong?
Right. I don't think that you're doing it wrong necessarily. Okay? Because I feel like there are, it's so weird that you mentioned phenakite, because phenakite to me, I do, I kind of associate it with the idea of our, of our soul, and things like the Akashic records, that kind of thing. But that sounds like a pattern with phenakite, right? And is there something in that pattern that really isn't about the phenakite, that maybe is about, okay, am I, doing the same thing? And is it something that, you have done before? Before this life, literally, that's what I'm talking about, which is a little bit out there, right? But, and is the fact that you're feeling this frustration and now wanting to sort of break that pattern, is that part of the whole journey? You know, did you have to go through this experience of spending a lot of money on stones that you didn't feel anything with to somehow kind of break through in some way? That's a possibility, I think. Something to think
Well, that
about.
would be good.
Who knows? Right? Yeah, that would be good.
That would be good.
That would be a good thing. And that's what I mean by they don't always they don't always serve us in the way that, you know, or resonate with us or, you know, do the things that we're expecting them to do, but sometimes they're doing something that is having a positive effect, but we just don't see it in the moment because it's hard to see those things in the moment.
Right.
It really
I am
is.
aware of that, yes, yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at, like, what message there is for you today. And
Cool.
I'm going to go a little bit outside the crystal sphere here with the cards that I'm pulling. I do this kind of what I call, I don't really have a name for this kind of reading, to tell you the truth, but there's two little decks that I use, and basically it's like a problem solution kind of thing. Like, is there any sort of, you know, issue that, you know, Spirit wants our attention to, and what is it that can solve that issue? Right?
Perfect.
And the issue that comes up is this idea around imbalance. Okay. And you know, in the depiction in the card, it's like, oh, okay, I'm trying to do this, and I'm trying to do. It's like multitasking, you know, and like, can I handle all this at the same time and not get sort of like off balance a little bit? And you know, the answer is talking about, like, listening. You know, it's kind of a weird message, but listening to your inner music and being yourself in a way that you fully accept, in the way that it doesn't matter if we're doing anything in perfect balance. It doesn't matter if we've got the outside appearance of, like, oh, look, you know, everything that I've done here fits perfectly. It's like, where's the inner music? Where's the inner light? And are we accepting of it? And are we also saying, like, you know, it's beautiful. Maybe I don't fit into everybody else's, you know, idea of what a perfect balanced life is. Maybe I'm not doing all the things that, you know, I feel everybody's saying, like, well, you should be doing, or this is how it works. And maybe what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing, being myself, not being somebody else's self. So I don't know how that message resonates with you, but that's what comes up.
Cool. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks so much for calling, David, and I wish you bright blessings on figuring out the whole thing with your crystals. Okay.
Well, yes, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate your time and energy.
Oh, thank you. You have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Okay, be well.
You too. Okay, what a great call from David there. And yes, we have a little more time for try to get to a couple more calls. Oh my goodness, there's so many calls today, which is wonderful. And if I am not able to get to your call today, please call in to one of our other shows this week. They're all live call-in shows with wonderful hosts that can give you some insight into what it is that you would like. And our next call, who's been waiting the longest here, is, maybe that's a New York number. I'm trying to get to know area codes just by off the top of my head. This is area code 917. Area code 917, caller, are you there?
Yes. Hey, Mary, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? What's your name and where are you calling from?
It's Stacy, and I'm calling from New York City.
Stacy! I'm from New York. How are you? What do you want to talk about today?
Love life, future love life. Let me know what you see coming up for me. Yeah.
Right.
So
what do you see coming up for you? And
after I finish my
love.
accomplishments. Yeah, after I finish my accomplishments. My accomplishments.
Right. After you finish your accomplishments, everything we want to get out of the way, and what do we see coming up in future love life? Okay, I'm going to use the Crystal Medicine Oracle, and that is by Rochelle Sharman. This time in illustrations by Lynn Hibble, and I really like this particular deck. I actually have, 1, 2, 3, I have like 3 or 4 crystal decks by Rochelle Sharman. I think she's my favorite crystal oracle creator. But this one is interesting because it's not just crystals. There's a few other elements to it. She calls it her shamanism card. So future love life, I think, calls for some shamanic energy. To take a look at that, what do we see there? Okay, and you said after your accomplishments, right? And
yeah, that's my goal.
Yeah, and what is, I think, so cool is that the stone that comes up are the Boji Stones. Now, these are these adorable little round stones, and they come in pairs, okay? And, that's the thing when, we're talking about love life, and, like, there's a stone that comes up that always has a partner with it, The other thing that comes up, too, is when are you looking for future love life? I think we're talking about at least a year from now.
Really?
I'm getting like a 13-month cycle.
Oh, wow.
So in that cycle already somewhere, but if you're talking about in alignment with, accomplishing what you need to accomplished, do you have a timeline for that?
So you said I have to do what you said? I'm sorry, Mary?
No, I'm asking, do you already have a timeline for when you're going to accomplish the things you feel you need to accomplish before starting a relationship?
I would say starting this summer.
Oh, okay.
It's going to take me about a year, yeah. You're right, it's going to take me about a year.
Yeah, and I'm getting like a 13-month cycle, so probably shortly after that is when we have somebody coming into your life that really is a partner. And what it's saying in the meantime,
that's what I'm looking for, yeah.
Yeah, like a true partner, like 2 peas in a pod, that kind of relationship where, it's like, there's not a lot of friction,
There we go. Yes.
Not a lot of friction, not, difficulty understanding where you're coming from, like none of that.
Exactly.
Who needs that?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's what I'm seeing with that. There's something about, the stone Numite comes up here too with this idea of there's a healing aspect to it. So, in a lot of ways love heals anyways, right? But when you find the right partner, it's like there's this sort of healing that takes place between the 2 people.
Oh, nice.
Okay. So we see that, and then it's like feeling like dancing.
Nice.
Something about dancing and, just, it's so funny.
Nice.
There's, not all of us are professional dancers, right? And, there is sometimes this kind of self-conscious thing that happens around the idea of dancing, but it's saying this is dancing like you don't care who's watching, being able to be with somebody in a way that, you know, you can do your own little funky dance, you know, and you feel good, not self-conscious about it, you know, that kind of energy to all of this. So I think it looks really great. I think there's a healing aspect to it. And, yeah, I think this is coming, like, in that 13-month cycle, like, after once you're ready for it, really, you know. It's like a thing where, you know, sometimes I see this a lot where people try to force love to come into their life. And they kind of just snag whatever partner, you know, they can find, you know, like, okay, you're going to be the person. And then, you know, it kind of throws everything off, and it often doesn't work, you know. And this is like, you know, the partnership forms because it is the right timing, you know, and that we are ready for it. So it looks really good to me, you know, for this.
Okay, that sounds excellent. I'm taking your advice.
Awesome. Thanks so much for calling, and have a wonderful, blessed weekend.
Okay, so once the 13 months gets near, I'll do another reading with you. I'll do definitely a personal reading with you, but I'm going to keep that. I just need that 13-month window. That sounds excellent.
Yeah. Awesome.
Because before then, it's just like awesome. Okay.
It's too much.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. All right. We are at the end of the show here today. I have a few minutes to just briefly talk now about these crystal oracle decks, and I really didn't want to talk about every single one of them. There's a lot on the market, but there's just a couple of tips that I wanted to provide here. And I wanted to say that, like, look, you know, when you read reviews of the decks online, that can really kind of, you know, color our judgment, our feelings and stuff. There's a lot of videos on YouTube that people make. I make them. I'm going to be starting a series this month in April on crystal oracle decks, and going through all the ones that I have, letting people really see the cards. And these are ones that I have been working with. And so I can give you an idea of, you know, how they work, what I think of them as cards to do readings with. They are different kind of readings than a lot of, like, they're totally different kind of readings than tarot cards are, and that, you know, a lot of other oracle decks are as well. And, you know, a lot of times they require that we learn about the stones that are depicted on the cards, and that we spend a bit more time with them. So, but the main thing I wanted to say is, if you see a deck that you're drawn to and, you know, the reviews aren't that favorable, people are like, well, this didn't really do anything for me. Well, disregard that. You know, that's their issue, not yours. You might have a different experience. Well, I always want to, like, pay attention to the things that we're drawn to, the things that resonate with us when we are talking about crystals. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, and especially after talking to David from Palm Springs today, when he was talking about now he spent all this money on all these crystals that are just, you know, in his garden now because he doesn't really feel any connection to them. Crystal oracle decks sometimes can be a really economic and space-saving solution to having a physical crystal collection. Yeah, you know, a lot of crystals are expensive. You know, a lot of them aren't. I try to highlight stones that are easily accessible and pretty affordable for the largest amount of people. But you get a crystal oracle deck, and, like, say, well, I have this one here that's a really interesting deck. It's a Mystic Mondays crystal grid deck by Grace Duong. And it's an 80-card deck to charge your intentions. And essentially, you use the deck, and you use most of these crystal decks that can be used just like you would use a real crystal, okay? And the reason that is like you have either a pretty lifelike, we're talking about crystals, illustration of the cards, or even, incredible photography of the cards, like Judy Hull's Crystal Wisdom Oracle is a great example of like stunning photography of crystals. And you can use those instead of using a crystal. If you meditate on crystals, right, if you like to hold one and look at it and meditate and get lost in it and stuff, you get a deck that's just the photographic quality is amazing, like the Judy Hull Crystal Wisdom Oracle, and it's the same effect. You can forget that it's a card, right? When we're working with crystals, so much of it is, the effort that we're making on a metaphysical level or spiritual level. For a lot of people, it's a spiritual thing. Meditation involves visualization anyways, and, holding the crystal, looking at it, looking at a picture of it, even looking at pictures of crystals online, can have the exact same effect. And why is that? Is because there's a larger idea here when we're working with crystals on a spiritual level. Many of us feel that we are working with the essence, the spirit, the deva, the crystal deva connected to the stone. Okay. Now, that works in a lot of different ways. Absolutely. And I know that there was recently, there was a big article, it even made the Drudge Report, where it's like, healing crystals are all the rage during the pandemic. The scientists are saying they're just rocks. Well, yeah, they're just rocks, right? It's Easter. When we look at, it's Easter weekend for what, billions of people, right? Me too, sure. And what is something that we see that invariably we see connected with Easter and with religious holidays, especially Christian religious holidays? We see a cross, right? Well, would you look at a cross and would you say, there's nothing to it. It's just like two pieces of wood, put together. Would you say that to anybody? Probably not, right? So saying the crystals are just rocks is kind of like the same thing to me. and what would make a cross so special, right? Well, it's a symbol, It's also the meaning that it has for us. It's also what we feel it represents and what it connects us with. And in the case of Easter, this is Easter weekend, the death and resurrection, and then some people, see that literally, that happened, an event that actually happened, and some people, still have questions about that, and some people see the metaphor of it for rebirth and resurrection, and that is a message of hope. And, there's nothing that I think we can, prove that shows that that's not important, that doesn't have an impact on people's lives. And in fact, we see, millions of people, billions of people that means very much to and has a huge impact on. And crystals work in a similar way, just because, a scientist looks at a stone and says, like, well, yeah, it's a rock to me, and it has these certain compounds, it has these certain chemicals in it, it has a certain structure. Well, hello, we have certain chemicals in us, and we have a certain structure. We're operating on so many different levels, right? Constantly, emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, right? don't think that things are meaningless just because you pick it up and it doesn't tell you a story in your own native tongue. Okay, I've got to see beyond a bit or feel beyond the boundaries of the mundane, and that's what it's all about. And I hope that all of you, have a beautiful Easter weekend. If you celebrate Easter, and if you don't, I hope that you have a beautiful weekend with lots of blessings and signs of that hope and that renewal and that just wonderful idea that this time of year can bring to us, that there's much more beyond our immediate physical circumstances on the earth realm. And Tektites is also a reminder of that there's something out there beyond this. So thank you all again for joining me today, and I will be back next week. Bye-bye, everybody.